The following video clips are owned by Warner Brothers, Man of Action, and Cartoon Network. Please support the official release by buying the DVDs or watching on streaming services. Thank you. Hi. So, last week I looked at some of the episodes from the original Ben 10 series that were monster themed, and I figured, why not do it again this time with the Ben 10 Omniverse episodes, where they did change the title to be Ben 10 Omniverse Galactic Monsters, and it was for the whole season, and only a handful of episodes took advantage of that title. But the episodes I'm going to be looking at specifically are the ones that are on this DVD right here, which was technically the last Omniverse DVD we ever got until, well, this. And I figured since it's still October, it'd be fun to look at them. So, let's look at the 3 episodes of Ben 10 Omniverse where they're on Inner Transyl. The episode starts off in space, where we see Ben playing a game of goldfish with the ship's pilot named Rad, where we then see their other friend Hobble, who's also a plumber, who's obviously scared about coming here, with Rook reminding him that there's a plumber base in this sector. However, it's really dangerous, which is why they hired Rad to fly them here. And so far things are going okay, until they aren't, where we then cut to the cargo hold, and we see a familiar-looking statue with a separate familiar voice coming out of it.
Almost home.
Leading to them to make an emergency crash landing on the Inner Transyl system. After the opening credits, we see that one of the main components to the ship is shot, and unfortunately, this part of the galaxy is a neutral zone, so the plumbers can't get to them for several weeks. However, Rourke does point out there is a plumber stationed here, so maybe if they go to him, they might be able to get some help. So they decide to head out. And upon heading outside, we see that everyone here is a monster, which actually excites Ben to the point where he just starts getting a good look at everyone. But he ends up scaring everyone and is told that on Earth, yes, these people are monsters, but on Inner Transyl, they are the monsters, which Ben doesn't exactly take too seriously. While traveling the back alleyways to stay out of sight, Hobble and Rook get taken away, with Rad pointing out how Ben is not really too concerned, with him explaining how cliche this all is for every other monster movie, and right as Rad mysteriously disappears, a mummy comes out and attacks him. So Ben turns in the Wildvine to fight him, where we then cut to a random werewolf. He has a name, but given how he's only in these 3 episodes, I'm not going to bother remembering it. And we see that Ghost Freak actually hitched a ride on the ship and for some reason corrects his head, which makes me question why he never did it in the original series. Or he then goes on to say, or at least be thankful to Ben for transporting some cargo that he was hoping to use back on his home planet, which they are currently on. Where we then cut to a crowd of people watching Ben fight the mummy, and after Ben wins, everyone's more horrified, thinking that he was here to attack them, and when he turns back into a human, it only makes things worse, but we do get a kind of funny moment where Ben gets a leg cramp and the monsters interpret that as him mocking them. Then we get a little montage of the townspeople chasing Ben as if this were a monster movie where the roles were reversed, which it kind of is. But then Ben gets taken by a werewolf wearing a plumber uniform. His name is Scout, and he's actually the plumber that was stationed here that Brooke mentioned earlier. Where he then goes on to take Ben to his homemade base, and he even gives them the part for their ship that they need. With Ben also asking for help on where to find his friends, and thankfully Scout knows who took them and where to find him. Mostly because crime is surprisingly low on this area, and what few criminals there are, Scout has kept full tabs on, which is quite convenient. Then we cut back to the ship, and we see Ghost Freak break into the cargo hold, and he gets a hold of that statue we saw earlier in the episode. Then we cut back to Ben in search, where they do end up finding the others, but the mummy ambushes them. So Ben transforms into Crash Hopper to fight him, while Search stops to free everyone. And Ben defeats him by literally trapping him in his own bandages. Now with the mummy defeated, they make their way back to the ship in hopes of leaving the planet, but they see that the door is open, and it's here where they see that Ghost Freak tagged along on the ride. And we also find out what they were transporting. Turns out it was Dr. Victor this whole time. And it's around this time where we actually learn Ghost Freak's real name. Yeah, apparently this whole time his real name was The Scare. And they give a kind of lame explanation by saying that he never answered to it, which, if you watched past episodes with Ghost Freak, he clearly did. And if Omniverse has taught us anything, if there's any plot inconsistencies, just blame the Celestial Sapiens. They're apparently the reason anything doesn't add up in the storyline. Where we then get a huge battle between the two factions, where the Scare then goes on to tell his backstory about how he escaped Ledger Domain, and by pure coincidence, when he found Victor being transported, Ben just happened to be on the ship going past his home planet. Then we get some more fighting until Ben transforms into energy and uses his radioactive light to weaken the Scare. But it's around this time that the townsfolk come in, still under the impression that Ben is just attacking a random civilian, giving the Scare and all of his minions ample time to escape. And once the fighting is all over, the townsfolk start to surround Ben again, but this time Scout comes in to stand up for Ben by saying that, yeah, on their planet he's a monster, but on his world it's the opposite, and thankfully they do sort of agree with him and stop harassing Ben. And with that, they get ready to fix the ship and head home, but Ben accidentally drops the part they need, breaking it, which makes them stuck here for the next couple episodes. So that was the first Galactic Monsters episode we looked at, and I actually really liked it. It was fun. Yeah, it can be a bit goofy in places, but I'll admit, it was really cool to see the home planet of all these monster aliens and what they're all like. And it was cool seeing Ghost Freak again along with Dr. Victor, so there was a lot of stuff going on which did keep me interested. And despite how it ended with Ben getting them stuck there, I do want to see more of this place. So, with that, let's look at the second episode we're going to be looking at. The episode starts off with the Scare doing some sort of experiment. Then out of nowhere, another villain from the show, this time Charmcaster, shows up out of nowhere and demands the Scare for a stone that's called the Alpha Rune, which at first he doesn't know what she's talking about. But after a description she gives, he does remember exactly what it is and even shows it to her. But since he's still using it, he makes her disappear. Then we cut to Ben, who is currently having some acne problems, and lo and behold, Charmcaster shows up. So out of instinct, Ben transforms to fight her, and he actually turns into my favorite alien. But for some reason, she's acting crazy due to the fact that she's talking to her handbag and no one can hear if it's actually talking back to her. Then Rook comes in to help, and upon seeing Ben's face, he is horrified thinking an alien parasite got stuck to him, mostly because his acne is getting worse since he turned back. And we even learn that he's been in talks with Gwen, which is kind of how he surprisingly knows a lot about Charmcaster, and a bit about magic. As they leave the bathroom, she kind of asks for their help to get the magic rock from the Scare, and I don't know, given how she's been acting, they're obviously hesitant to trust her, especially seeing how she has tried to kill Ben in the past. Then we cut to what I think is the engine room, where we see Rad and Scout who are still trying to fix the ship, along with Hobble, who, all three of which are kind of ignoring Ben due to the fact that he's the reason they're stuck here. But Hobble quickly takes an interest in Charmcaster upon seeing her. Speaking of, she does bring up a good point that technically they have the same goal of stopping the Scare, but given how she is a villain, they are still once again hesitant to trust her. Also, Ben can't leave the ship due to the fact that the townspeople keep throwing garbage at him upon seeing him. So our Charmcaster uses her magic to scare them off, or at least entertain them off, just so they can leave. And when they make it into town, it turns out the locals aren't really scared of Ben anymore due to how his face looks at the moment. And he also meets up with a little girl who seems interested in how he looks now, but I don't know, there's just a running gag throughout the episode, which I'm just really going to gloss over whenever it happens. As well as getting the start of another running gag where Rook keeps throwing random magical items Gwen taught him how to make to hopefully cure Ben's acne, which, unlike the other one I just brought up, this one did make me laugh. But not long afterwards, they do eventually make it to the Scare's castle, where they immediately get overrun by jack-o'-lantern monsters, and when Ben transforms into Swampfire again, he looks a little different. But after some fighting, they get overrun by the pumpkins, so they decide to just run right to the castle with Charmcaster sealing them out. While inside, they come across a whole bunch of stuff like a fork in the road, a reference to that painting of all the stairs, and two girls who are obviously supposed to be a reference to The Shining, and a fun little mirror which shows monster versions of everyone, except for Ben. And lo and behold, the mirror reflections come to life and start attacking them. But since they're made of glass, they just smash them. And by pure coincidence, right behind the mirror is Ghost Freak's lab, and when Charmcaster demands the Alpha Rune again, he actually lets her have it. Yeah, apparently he's done with it and he just lets her keep it, along with making his castle disappear, with Ben more or less saying what we're all thinking at the moment.
Well, that was anticlimactic.
And since they're back outside again, they once again get attacked by the pumpkin creatures we met earlier. But thankfully, Charmcaster uses the Alpha Rune to power up. Yeah, apparently there's still some energy left in it. And does she use it to help him? No, like Ben predicted, she ends up betraying them and starts attacking. But thankfully around this time when Ben turns back into a human, he ends up turning back into Swampfire one more time, and even Swampfire got a new power-up form, which is actually strong enough to control the pumpkin people, which he of course uses to attack Charmcaster, but don't really do much. And by literal dumb luck, Hobble finds out that all the potions Rook brought with them are actually quite effective against her, and even used one of them to destroy the Alpha Rune. And for good measure, Rook pulls out the spell book that Gwen let him borrow, and he ends up using a spell to teleport her to God knows where. And even Ben starts looking normal again when he turns back, with Rook theorizing that Swampfire's new form was probably why Ben was having that massive breakout. Then we cut to Legend Domain, where we see that Charmcaster was more or less sent here after Rook cast the spell, and we find out who was in the bag that she was talking to. Yeah, a couple of the other magic villains from the show were trapped in there as little tiny dolls, with the episode coming to an end with Charmcaster setting up her next evil plan, which we won't see in this video right now. So that was the second episode where they're on Inner Transyl. It was kind of a strange one because they just randomly bring in Charmcaster just so she can steal a rock and hype up her next evil plan for a later appearance. I mean, granted, it was still fun to be on Inner Transyl, but in terms of progressing the story, it doesn't really do it. Like, we get a glimpse of what the Scare is planning, but that's it. The rest is just could be looked at as nothing more than filler, but granted, they did use my favorite alien this episode, this time Swampfire. Yeah, I have two of these guys. So, that was nice, and his redesign, I'm a bit iffy on. Like, I don't hate it, but I don't love it. So, I don't know. It's a nice excuse to have my favorite alien be seen more in the show, which, that alone makes the episode worth watching, in my opinion. So with that, let's look at the last episode we're going to be looking at. The last episode we're going to be looking at starts off with Rat finishing the ship and everyone being glad to get off Inner Transyl, where we then cut to the Scare still continuing his experiments from the last episode, where he plans to resurrect someone called Lord Transyl, which Victor has his misgivings about given how he apparently enslaved his people back when he was alive. After the opening credits, we cut back to Ben and the others when Ben gets a reading from the Omnitrix detecting DNA that's not in there, which will also shut down the Omnitrix within 30 seconds if he doesn't go back for it. And when he asks Rat to go back, he says no and just flat out throws him off the ship, which I'll admit was kind of funny. So Rook asks him to turn back as well, and he at first doesn't want to, and he pretty much says if he doesn't go back, he won't pay him. We then cut back to the Scare, who successfully brings back Lord Transyl, and the first thing he does upon waking up is attack Victor and the mummy, saying he needs to feed, leading to a pretty short but fun fight between the two, and Ghost Freak or the Scare, I keep mixing the two up, gives them an ultimatum. Either they fight to the death, or they work together, which he is hesitant to at first until he brings up he wants to conquer the universe, which he is fully on board for. Then we go back to Ben, who is searching for the DNA the Omnitrix detected, where they then meet up with Scout, who tries to tell them that something is wrong, and before he can do that, we see what it is. Apparently, the entire town is under some sort of hypnosis and are wearing these weird bat eyeball things on their foreheads. Where, lo and behold, more of them come and latch themselves onto everyone except for Ben. But thankfully, due to Hobble having weird slimy skin, it just slides off him, with everyone else about to attack them. Where he then comes face to face with Lord Transyl, and lo and behold, his DNA was what the Omnitrix was looking for. And like in the last video, every time Ben got close to one of these guys, he always got something cool. And this new alien here is known as Vampire. And the first thing he does is the same thing Lord Transyl did to his friends. He takes control of his minions and makes them attack them. But unfortunately, they're heavily outnumbered, and when they become overwhelmed, he uses a power I've never seen him use since. And one of the people flying away has this weird scream which makes me laugh. And now that they are more or less in the clear, they make a run for it, where we see them laying low in what I think is the same hideout the Mummy was using in the first episode we looked at. And since these guys are under Ben's control now, he asks them to take him to where the scare is hiding, as well as asking what his real evil plan is, despite how hard they're trying to resist his control. But thankfully for the audience, we then cut to the scare who ends up explaining his evil plan, which is pretty much to use Lord Transyl's DNA as a template to clone him to make an army of people that could control others, mostly as a way to take over the universe one planet at a time. And out of pure irony, since Ben is using his minions, he decides to use his friends as his new minions for the time being. Where, lo and behold, Ben shows up, leading to a big fight, and I'm not gonna lie, the fact that each of them has each other's allies does make this really fun. But later on, Lord Transyl gets a hold of Ben and tries to mind control him with his eyes, but since they're the same species, it doesn't really work. And by pure awkward coincidence, the Omnitrix times out, setting his other minions free, leaving Ben pretty much defenseless, and Hobble also bailed on him. And when they get ready to make Ben their next minion, Dr. Victor ends up betraying them because he actually hates Lord Transyl and is all for destroying the clones and having less of him in the universe. And thankfully the paws get destroyed by Hobble, who actually just got back in the ship. However, Lord Transyl gets the hold of Ben, but luckily for him, the Omnitrix is recharged, and this time, he turns it to atomics. And with his power, he ends up making a powerful light which incinerates the scare, and heavily weakens Lord Transyl to the point where his control over the others is broken, leading to Dr. Victor to take Lord Transyl, and he says he's going to put him somewhere safe, whatever that means. And with that, everyone gets ready to finally leave Inner Transyl. Then the episode comes to an end with Dr. Victor putting Lord Transyl in front of a star, keeping him weakened forever, and everyone else going through a wormhole back home. So that was the third episode where they're on Inner Transyl, and it was definitely a pretty good one. Like, despite not having much screen time with Lord Transyl before he's defeated, I thought it was an interesting villain, and Vampire I thought was a cool alien, which unfortunately didn't get used enough after this episode. But, as a whole, I think these were fun episodes to watch, especially around this time of year. Are they great? No, but I had fun. Were they better than the other episodes I looked at? Maybe, like, with the last one, it was 4 episodes, with one of them kind of feeling like it could have been easily glanced over as random dialogue. This one, it's kind of the same deal with, this time it's 3 episodes, with one of the episodes feeling like it could have just been glanced over. However, unlike last time where one of them was kind of boring, this one, I thought all 3 were fun. And, believe it or not, there's actually 2 more episodes on this DVD. Are they Halloween themed? Not really. Like, one of them involves Dr. Animo, and the other one involves Ben getting over his fear of clowns while fighting Zombozo again. But, aside from that, I had fun this time. And with that, I hope you have fun too. I hope you enjoy your Halloween. I'm not really trick-or-treating anymore, but I will hand out candy. And with that, I wish you the best of luck going out trick-or-treating or just hang out with friends watching a movie while eating said candy. Let me know in the comments. Did you like these episodes? Did you hate them? I want to know how you feel about them. And if you're going out trick-or-treating tonight, I want to know if that's still around. With that, see ya!